Hi, and welcome to another video in the RHCE video series. Today's video is on know how to work with commonly used Ansible modules. So we have covered a large number of modules during the course of the videos. What I'll try and do here is do an end-to-end example maybe of a large Ansible script that we'll create from scratch, and we'll give it a run through, probably troubleshoot here and there, and yeah, just work with a fair number of different modules in this video. So yep, so in this example, what I'll try and do is create a new file system. So I've got a partition already created on the Ansible client I had before. So I'm going to create a LVM volume, create obviously of course first a volume group, then an LVM volume, then a file system, and then mount the said file system. Do things like create a user, do the firewall settings, install the relevant packages, set up the service, copy the relevant config file, and that's it. So just like a prime example of what maybe you might do. And that uses a lot of the modules, and I'll kind of just cover each one as we go along, basically. Cool. Let's begin. So let me just launch the terminal. As always, let me be lazy and just sudo bash and clear. Okay. So let me just go into, where am I right now? So let's just go documents, just make a new directory, and we call it web server setup. I'll just go into that directory. Okay, so we'll make a new file called inventory. Oh no, actually just go grab an inventory from another previous video. Just copy that one here. Let's just have a look at the inventory file. Okay, so I'll just get rid of the stuff that won't work anymore. What I'll do is keep that as web. So I'll keep that here, so we won't target any other clients. Actually, just do an undo here, remove that there, so that will do. So we'll just target the web ones. So we'll obviously make use of the inventory file to do this. Okay, cool. So first things first, let's create a new file. Let's just call it web server setup.yaml. Okay, so triple dash. Okay, and then we'll do a hosts, and it was just web, and task. We're going to then do the first task, which is give it a name of creating the volume group. And then we do a LVG, and then we do a VG. So volume group is VG1, and PVS is physical volume as dev, and then SDB for us. So I've created a second disk, and obviously this is the first partition, which I've just obviously just set up. It's just a 10 gig partition, nothing crazy there. We can set the PE size here. Let's just set it to 32. Okay, so that will create the volume group. We then want to go down to creating the LVM. I'll call it volume again, LVM volume. Then we need a LV vol. And then we've got a VG again. And we're going to say VG1. And then we've got an LV. We can give it, let's call it LV volume 1. And then PVS will be dev SDB1. Okay, and then we want to create a file system after this. So just do another return dash name, create the file system, and then we'll do a, oops, why am I doing task? I want to do then file system, and then we can then do fs type, and we do xfs, and device will be dev, and then it'll be the volume group 1, and then logical volume, whoops, vol, I think it's vol1, yeah. That should do that. So then we've created the volume group, we've created the logical volume, we've created the file system. So then we've got to mount the same thing. So we can do fs type actions here as well. So we then do mount the file system, and then we're just going to do a mount. So a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, the command line itself is not the easiest in the world to remember, but it's one of those things you just end up doing several times, and it just becomes the norm, really. And I do end up looking up a lot of stuff as I go along to memorize it, because it is like any other scripting, really. You need to know the syntax and what to expect, basically. So fs type is, for this one, we're mounting, we're setting the file system type as xfs, which we know it is. We're going to set the source, which is vg1 lv vol1. We're then going to set a path. Let's just do opt web. I'm not 100% sure that would work, but we'll just see. And then we do a state of mounted. So then that'll mount it. So obviously it's not a persistent mount, but that will do the system for now. We're just going to do a quick example, really. So that will do that. What do we want to do next? Let's see actually, let's set this to var www.html. So, or just a var www. So this means that, so I'm thinking in this example, we've got some kind of fast disk, okay, and we're using this disk which we're creating the volume group and whatnot for the website to be hosted on. So perhaps the standard system is on just a standard disk, which isn't maybe just a normal spinning disk, and then this will be on some kind of SSD. In this example, it may not be the most realistic example. I don't build web servers that often, but yeah, this is it's just a bit of an example, really. That's all. Okay, so var www dot. Okay, so now let's do the installation of the service. So we've got all the files and whatnot in the right places. We've created all the logical volumes. Yeah, okay. So let's install the service. Okay, so we'll have to make a temporary. Okay, cool. So name, we'll then call it install httpd. Okay, and then we can use the DNF module, not surprisingly. We can then give it a name, and we can say, we can obviously specify multiple modules. Let me show you how that happens. We'll just do hyphen httpd and then hyphen xxyy, whatever, but we're just going to do specify one, so we're just going to do it all in one. I'll just clean this up. httpd, cool. And then we're going to do state latest, so that will do that. Nothing more to add there. So we're going to install httpd, so I can use the network module. So I can use this Well, I don't really need to do that. Okay, well, I won't bother with that one. Okay, so copy. Okay, so I'm gonna have to create a fake HTTPD file, but I'll do that in a second. But yeah, I'll just have a situation where we'll copy over our specific configuration for HTTPD. Yeah, in this example, for example, you may have like a production version of how you set up your web servers. So you'd have that stored on the Ansible server or on obviously a file share somewhere, which then Ansible pulls down and pushes to the system. Obviously, it can do stuff like SCP to do the transfers, so it doesn't need to do anything magical in there. So we'll just do a copy the prod version of the HTTPD config. Okay, and then we're going to have a src. Oh, give the name of the module first. And then we have a source, and then that will be, that could be anywhere. Let's just have it on, yeah. So I remember, my memory is like a sieve sometimes, so let's just call it sources metroot httpd.conf on the Ansible server. But obviously that could be file share, whatever, mount, whatever, wherever it could be. And then we have a dest and etc. httpd dot etc. I want httpd, sorry, and then slash conf and then slash httpd.conf. So that'll put it in the right place. And then we want to set the owner. What's the username? So I haven't created a user yet. So I will set that as well. Okay. And for now, we just set the owner as root. Let's set the owner to be root. I will then set the group to be root. We can then set a mode. So it'll be, you've got to have a 0 in this one. I'll put in quotes 0644, so I should give the relevant access to the file for the rest of the system, at least to read it. And backup, yes, so that means we don't lose the original file should we need it. So we've got the package installed, we've copied the file. May want to, okay, so there's a couple more other actions I want to do. So the next one would be to create a firewall rule. Create a firewall rule to allow port 80. Okay, and we're going to have, it's going to be firewall D, unsurprisingly, and port 80/TCP, again, unsurprisingly. Permanent, spell it right, yep. Yes, and state enabled. That should be that one. So that's pretty self-explanatory, that one. Obviously, yeah, as I've shown in the RHCSA videos, the permanent means that it's literally stays on past a reboot. Whereas if you say don't say permanent there, upon reboot, you'll lose that firewall rule. And I think, what else would I have on my list here? Okay, let's create a new user just for the sake of using the user module, to be honest. Create a new user for local admin. And we call the user module, give it a name. Ladmin, local admin. Comment local admin. You can set UIDs if you want to. I won't bother, I don't think, in this case. we set a group. We can set them to the wheel group, or we can set them to a specific group if we other group if we need to, and we give them a shell of bin bash because we're very kind. Cool. And what else do we need here? Okay, let's yeah, a couple more things I can think of really. So we can do a line in file, so just double check a specific config set. So we can use let's see an example on the net, which is just to double check if SE Linux is in the right state. And to do that is easy enough. So we can do a line in file, and we've got a path, and it's etc. SE Linux config, and then we can do a regex expression, regular expression, and we then just do a quote, single quote, and then a caret symbol, and then SE Linux equals, and then close quote. The line is SE Linux equals enforcing. Actually, we're not really checking, we're making ensuring, because we're just updating the line in the file, yeah. So upon reboot, that will make sure it's in enforcing mode. Just make sure I spelled that right. If I spell that wrong, it's going to have pretty catastrophic potential of breaking a fair bit. Yeah, one thing to note with this copy command, you can also do a file command in a pretty similar way. So you can, for example, so if it was a file in here, I'll just change this to file. Instead of source, this would just be path. And then we wouldn't obviously have a destination. We could then set the owner group mode and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, a backup again doesn't make any sense, but yeah, just to mention there that basically it's the same setup there. So it's quite a good way of remembering that, so you don't have to remember multiple there. And I think finally, one thing I want to do is just have a backup. So we have create a bz2 archive of the website files. Yeah, again, just an example, it's not the best. We want to do archive module, if I can spell it right. Then we set the path, and we can obviously have multiple paths. Again, you can use a dash. I just want to set actually one path, so I want to do var www, and that will do it. I think I should do it like that. And then dest, we'll just put it to trying to think somewhere else to put it. God, I'll just put it to root, and yeah, that'll do. I'll just put it there for now. It's not really that important. It's just an example again. And format to say which kind of backup we're going to do, and a BZ2. That should be my command. So let's go all the way back to the top. I think I'll be surprised if this works flawlessly on the first time, but we shall see. Hey, so I'm just running against the web hosts. I'm creating a volume group, VG1. We're then creating an LVM volume, and that's VG1 again, L41, yep, devs SDB1. We're creating a file system. Yeah, I'll spell file system right. We've got that. We've mounted a file system. Okay. So I could probably do a line in the file to do the fs tab option, so I can find whatever the last line is, or sign something in specifically at the end, and Then yeah, and then add that into the bottom. Copy the prod version of HTTP config. Yeah. Oh, so I need to create a HTTP config now. So that's root HTTP config. I'll just create some blank file, to be honest. Ensure IC Linux is in enforcing mode, and then create the backup. So we shall see if this works. So I need to create the root httpd.conf. Okay, so root httpd.conf, and this has been copied. Okay, let's see. Here goes nothing came. Okay, so we've got our first error. So we've got a no size given. Okay. Let's go and update the file. Did I not give the size? Let's see. So generally it's pretty self-explanatory. So it's on this one. Yeah, and I haven't given a size. Okay, so I thought that wasn't mandatory, to be honest, but let's give that a 10G like that. I think that should be correct. And now let's give it another run. Okay, so rather doing some guesswork, so obviously 10 gigs, I've given the size as 10 gigs. So what I can do is, rather than that, we can do actually 100% and then free. And then that will just use whatever space is available. Because it won't be exactly 10 gig, because it'd be like 9.99 or something. Because I've allocated exactly 10 gig, and if obviously you lose some of the space creating the volume group and whatnot. So hopefully this should do the job. Yep. Okay, so we got a bit further this time. Oh, okay, so it looked like we did pretty well until the very last task, typically, of course. Um, so what I've done is I've given a it's saying I'm giving a directory rather than a file location. So I should actually be giving a um, a file name in this case. So I'll just give, that's a pretty easy fix, this one. So we did pretty well, to be honest. So we got all the way down to the bottom. So destination should be, let's call it HTTP, let's call it website backup.bz2, and right quit and try again. Or let me just clear to get it to stop and run it again. So it should blister through a lot of this stuff, because obviously, yeah, so it's all run once. I need to be able to skip some of these tasks. Let me just, yeah, obviously these tasks don't like to run twice, for obvious reasons. Let me just, what I can do is just comment out the stuff we don't want. I think that's just creating the file system. So we'll just do because obviously let's do a comment out on that line, and let's just do it on any of these creating stuff, because we don't want to do that anymore. You could probably do something a bit more clever around handling this. We can do a check to see if that system's already there. If it is, then we'll handle it to then not have to, rerun this bit. But To be honest, this is only just be a quick example, so I'm not gonna spend the time to go through that as well. It's just a bit of logic, really. You can do a line in a file or run a specific command to check it. So yeah, so I've got an okay now, so I've just skipped those specific parts. I've checked the install version of HTTPD, I've created a firewall rule, I've created a new user, and we've created a BZ to archive. Okay, so that should be pretty much everything set up on that. Let me just double check that. I never did start the service, so we've got the volume group, volume mount the file system, install it, copy the file server, ensure Linux. Okay, so it won't work anyway because my HTTP conf is dodgy to say the least. Let me go get a good one and put that in the right directory so this will work. So what I've done is just gone in and cleaned up the server. So it's got nothing on it, and if I've actually removed all the volume groups, so I'm going to try and get one clean run if I can. Let's see if I can get one clean run. So I've played all the user, set this thing. Okay, so if I get this stuff going, so I just want to in here, I want to do one more task. Name, start HTTPD service. Not user, it's service, and then name HTTPD state started, and then we're going to have enabled. Yes, so it's going to also make it start up on boot. So that should be it, I think. So let me just go clean up all the stuff above. Okay, so let's create all the volume groups and stuff again. Clear out the hashes. Probably mess up all the tabs. Yep. Gonna have to be very careful with this stuff. Okay, that looks okay. Okay, looks alright. This stuff doesn't look too messed up. Yeah, okay. This one looks pretty bad, so I need to fix this one so it's all lined up and looks good to my eye. Yeah, yeah, that's about right. Okay, so it should be okay. That looks like it should be alright. I think it's all should be happy. Okay, let's see if we have a nice clean run. Oh yeah, and also offline I did update the http.conf to be an actual valid one, so we can have a nice run and actually apply config files or do something useful. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so we've got a complete. Okay, so it looks like we've set up our system. So yeah, it's listening on port 8080, this standard Apache Tomcat port. Obviously, I opened the port 80 as well, but yeah, for this example, that it's working fine. Basically, the system's up and running, and I'm not too worried. Yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, never mind. So that's all working. The application's working fine. Obviously we've got the new user created. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So it does go through a lot of different modules, and as you can see, you can just stack them up like this, and you can build a pretty comprehensive script. So we could obviously do some things to, like I mentioned, you can probably do some pre-checks to check these things, whether they've been set up or not, and we can then exclude certain things. So for example, if HTTP is already installed, we could have a check for that. So you could have potentially one Ansible script that does all these different checks, and then they call these individual scripts. So you could have multiple scripts and then have different calls to the various scripts if required. It would make it obviously a bit more robust than this one, which is just it'll run through the list, and if anything fails, as we know, it will just fail and crash and burn basically. But yeah, that's not really the intent of it. It was just more to just show you all the different modules I could think of as fairly common ones, and just to go through the usage of each of those. Yep, thanks for watching the video as always, and I'll catch you next one. Cheers. Right now I've just popped up on the screen my TeePublic page. That's for any kind of CSG merch, if that's anything you're interested in. Got my Ko-fi page for any kind donations, if that's something you're interested in. Yep, and also just the details of my Discord server, so that's the best place to ask questions. Also, we've got, obviously, you can ask questions in the comments and I'll try and help out where I can, but Discord place is a great place. We've got a bit of a community going there, and you can reach out to myself and also the community, and someone will try and help you. Yeah, it's a great community we're building there. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you at the next video. Cheers.